Hi there, I'm Savannah Mexta with Mannor Law Group, and I'm excited to welcome you to another webinar Wednesday with esteemed elder law and estate planning attorney, Robert Mannor. On today's webinar, Bob will be discussing the importance of legal planning and how just a few simple planning efforts can truly make the biggest difference in protecting your assets and those who you love most. Now, before I pass the torch to Bob, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping details. First, a quick disclaimer, and Bob will cover more on this later. Today's webinar will be educational, informative. You will definitely learn something new, but you're not going to get specific legal advice. I encourage you, if you are looking for legal advice, to reach out to us after the webinar. Also note that today's webinar is recorded. Tomorrow we'll send out a replay link that you can share with your family and friends. Now, if you have questions during today's webinar, I encourage you to put those questions into the chat box. We will save time at the end of the webinar to review questions, and if for some reason we don't get to your question, we will contact you after the webinar. Now, why should you listen to what the folks at Mannor Law Group have to say? First, note that we're a nationally recognized and respected elder law and estate planning firm. All three of our attorneys are accredited by the Veterans Administration to assist veterans with claims and appeals. Attorney Bob Mannor is nationally board certified as an elder law attorney by the National Elder Law Foundation. He's one of only 19 attorneys in Michigan to achieve this designation. He's currently on the executive board of the Safe Bar of Michigan Elder Law and Disability Rights Section, and past president of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys Michigan chapter. Lastly, Mannor Law Group has been honored by readers of our local paper as the best or favorite law firm for the last 8 years in a row. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Attorney Bob Mannor.
Hi, folks. We're going to get right into this. And so when it comes to protecting things, one of the big questions I always say are, what are we protecting from, right? So what are the risks out there is another way of asking that question. And so I think that there are, there's lots of risks that different people are going to face in different circumstances. And some people are going to be more exposed to lawsuits, and other people are going to be less likely to be subject to lawsuits that aren't covered by insurance, like car insurance and things like that. So the things that are going to be the biggest dangers out there for folks is typically going to be getting caught up in a court matter. It's going to be the cost of care that is not going to be covered by insurance or Medicare, and the big danger in protecting things is making sure that you keep control and you keep things in the family. This is probably as important as anything else to say, okay, well, we don't want outsiders, we don't want strangers, we don't want lawyers and judges and public administrators controlling things. So how do we make sure that you have quality of life? Now, having said that, the importance of maintaining control is that some families, out of the desire to keep control, don't seek out quality of life. So someone, for example, that clearly shouldn't be independent on their own. Maybe we need caregivers in the house. Maybe we need to look at other care settings, and families will neglect that with the idea that they're trying to provide for control, and they want the person to be able to have control when they clearly need help, they clearly need care, they clearly need supervision or daily assistance with all types of activities of daily living. And so these are the topics that we're going to cover today. Paying for long-term care, how are we going to go about that? Avoiding the court system, staying out of court and keeping control in the family, and keeping control and maintaining quality of life. And so quality of life, there's two aspects of that. One is just making sure that we have the best for that stage of life, the best that we can have with the circumstances that we have. So if somebody has Alzheimer's, that's going to be a difficult situation, but that doesn't mean that we can't make it better, can't make it good, right? We can't make it good, but we can make it better, better circumstances, make sure that they're getting good care and quality care and things like that. And so it's there's the two aspects of that. One is not being put into some system where they're getting bad care, and the second is not getting any care at all. So some families will default to the position of, well, I'm worried about nursing homes, so we're not going to get any care at all. Well, no, that's not the answer. First of all, your idea of what a nursing home might be, you might, not have a context of what that looks like now. And so that's actually the very first thing that we're going to talk about here. So this is a chart that we came up with and we share with our clients. I've had a few other attorneys look at this chart, and they were really pleased with how well this is laid out. And so I was asked to present at a conference, and so that other attorneys could use this chart that we created in our office. The conference ended up getting canceled because of everything seems to be canceled these days, because it was a large conference and they didn't want that many people in the room together. But I'm sure we will end up doing that next year. And so let's walk through what this is and why this is important. And it is actually the first step. It may seem a little bit odd that we're starting off with this chart of levels of care when the topic was protecting yourself and your family. But this is so important. This is really the first step of the discussion of how are we going to protect family? Because what most people don't realize is the type of care or the living situation is going to make a difference as to what we can do to protect folks. And so I think people just assume, oh, well, it doesn't matter whether it's care in your home or care in assisted living or independent living or adult foster care, nursing home, or any of these things. People just assume, well, all right, well, if I need care, it doesn't matter. I'll be able to get veterans benefits. I'll be able to get Medicaid. I'll be able to get PACE. I'll be able to get waiver. I'll be able to get these programs that people just have this vague knowledge of, and they think, okay, well, we'll be able to do that. And the reality is that's not accurate. So the first step we have to decide in almost every single case where we're trying to help a family and protect them and get them good quality care and protect their assets and all of that, the first step is to say, well, what type of care are we getting? What type of care do we need? And so you'll see on the left-hand column over here that we start off with home and independent. And then we go with home with care, independent living, adult foster care, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, and hospital. Now, where the real danger zone comes in is when we need the level of care further down the page, but we're still home and independent, right? I'm not suggesting that you have to leave your home. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am suggesting is that many, many times families and spouses will say, oh, well, yes, I know my spouse or my dad or my mom they need a lot of help. They need a lot of care, but they just, they don't want that. They want to stay in their house. They don't want caregivers coming in. Well, we're putting them in a very dangerous situation sometimes. If somebody has severe Alzheimer's or severe dementia, or maybe they might wander away, or they might leave the stove on, or those types of things. It's very dangerous if we stay in this top section when really we need some other level of care. So that's just the first thing to think about. And then as we proceed across the page here, we see, okay, well, what type of care is available in the different settings? What type of caregivers are they typically? You'll see many of them are generally unlicensed, right? So caregivers don't have to be licensed. We don't have to have a nurse or certified nursing assistant or anything like that. Many times for caregivers, we don't need a nurse necessarily to help us get dressed in the morning, to help us transfer from the bed to the whatever activities for the day, to remind us to shower, to help us shower, to remind us to eat, to prepare meals, to do all those types of things. It doesn't have to be licensed care. So then the next column is, do they provide 24-hour medical care? And the answer is almost all of them are no. You see all of them are no down to the last two. Yes is for skilled nursing, and yes is for the hospital, obviously. But a lot of places, people assume, oh, well, there's going to be medical staff there at the memory care, the assisted living, adult foster care, independent living. And the answer is not exactly. In fact, if they had medical staff there 24 hours a day, they'd have to be licensed as a skilled nursing facility. That's one of the requirements. And so the thing about this is It's just something, often it's not that important, but it is sometimes when we're getting into certain long-term care insurances won't pay if there's not medical staff there supervising 24 hours a day. So it seems like an odd requirement, and you really wouldn't want to have a long-term care insurance policy that has that. But I have had long-term care insurance companies make that claim and point to a provision in their contract with all the small print and try to deny benefits for an assisted living or for a memory care or something like that. So just be aware of that. Now, the other thing, because I might slip into this, is when I refer to a skilled nursing facility, there's two other names that I might call it. One is nursing home. Okay, so a lot of people, when I use the term nursing home, they think of nursing home as anything where they're no longer in their own home, right? They think of nursing home as independent living, adult foster care, assisted living, memory care. When I say the word nursing home, I mean a very specific thing because it's a licensing issue. And for a nursing home, if I use that term, it means skilled nursing facility. Okay, this second to bottom line here. And so then the other thing that they often call themselves, that they'll say that they're for rehab care. So all the places that they call themselves rehab, where you go after the hospital for physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, those types of things, they often have sort of repositioned themselves as rehab. But almost all of them are licensed. If they're rehab, if they do Medicare rehab, they're licensed as a nursing home. They're licensed as a skilled care facility. And you're going to see in a second how important that is when it comes to how are we going to pay for this. All right. So the next column is it locked? Well, this is particularly important in the event that the person might wander, like they might escape. Sometimes people will say, and so that's an important issue. How do we prevent wandering? Well, you know, a lot of the different places have different methods of dealing with that, whether they just have you know, somebody sitting at the door, or if they have people wear a monitor around their ankle or around their wrist, or you know, or they make it a little bit more difficult for the to get in and out. But there's only a couple places that you see on here that are specifically designed to prevent wandering, and that's typically going to be your memory care assisted living. So I put memory care in the category of assisted living because it's just sort of a different type of assisted living. Are there any nursing homes or skilled nursing facilities that have memory care, or you know, where they're locked? And the answer is there are some, but they're very, very few actually. So they got to come up with other ways. If you're in a nursing home, they got to come up with other ways to prevent that wandering. And so then the next category is, can it be paid by Veterans Benefits Aid and Attendance? We're going to talk about this in just a minute here about aid and attendance. There's lots of different veterans benefits, right? So there's different benefits that different types of veterans would qualify for. The one that's usually referenced when it comes to long-term care is the one that's going to be most widely available for people that served during a wartime or their spouses served during a wartime. And that is frequently called VA pension or VA aid and attendance. And you'll see all the way down, it's yes, 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 because the VA aid and attendance is actually money, and we have to be using it. Our income has to be offset by the cost of care, but then they'll write us a check. You know, they'll give us money every month, and so it's nice. You know, it's one of the most flexible programs because we can use it for home care. We can use it if we document it properly. We can use it to pay a family member. Now, I'm going to repeat that when I say when we document it properly, because if we don't document it properly, we can end up having some real problems, and they could maybe ask for money back. It could cause us penalties if we need other types of care. And so if we are paying family members, it's really, really important that you come talk to us and we set that up properly with what we call a family care contract. So we have to have a written agreement if we're going to be paying family members. And it's so important these days. The law is just really crazy when it comes to that, of all the penalties that could come about if we don't have that written notarized contract. So, and even non-family members, we actually now have to have that contract, but just keep that in mind. Next one is, can it be paid for long-term care, paid for by Medicare and health insurance? And this is where it gets dicey, right? Because you see all these no's that Medicare and health insurance isn't going to pay for home care, isn't going to pay for independent living, adult foster care, assisted living. Now, sometimes people say, they've not dealt with this before, and their parent or their spouse went to the hospital, and the hospital says, oh, we're going to send a nurse, and we're going to send a physical therapist, and they're going to come by, and they're like, great, this is home care. But it's not, because what that means is it's going to be, half hour a week, or maybe an hour a week, or something like that. And so when I'm mentioning long-term care, I mean where continuing care, help getting up in the morning, help showering, help making sure the person is not is comfortable and is not gonna get bed sores or be malnourished or wander away, or any of the number of terrible things that could happen. And so that's not provided. When they say they're going to send it by a nurse, they're just going to come by, check your vitals, check your status, and then leave. But they're not going to, the nurse, the physical therapist, those types of things that are provided by Medicare and your insurance, they're not going to typically get you dressed. Now, there's some other programs where there might be some help with like showering or things like that. They'll come by once a week and help the person shower. But that's not a Medicare benefit. That's not a Blue Cross benefit. So I need to probably update this form, because when you go down to skilled nursing, it says yes, but the yes is really temporary. Okay, so you might get some temporary time where this is covered, but only if you're getting other therapies. If you're getting physical therapy, occupational therapy, well, that's going to end at some point. Just like the nurse coming by the house to check your vitals, that's going to end at some point. And so when we're talking about long-term care, it's the care that's going where we need it 24 hours a day, we need it 5 hours a day, we need it 3 hours a day, we need it ongoing. We might need it for the rest of the person's life, potentially. And so that is not going to be paid for by Medicare or health insurance on any of these. And so this is something where I like to point out sort of the discrepancy between certain diseases. So sometimes when people talk about these government benefits that we're going to talk about in a second here, these Medicaid benefits, the last three columns, when people talk about Medicaid, they say, oh, well, that's for poor people, or that's for, you have to lose all your money first. Well, that's not true if we do it right, okay? And it's important that I say the rest of that sentence. It's not true if we do it right. So let me give you an example of why this is so important. So if your spouse has heart disease, right? So they have chronic heart disease and they need a quadruple bypass surgery. And they're going to need hospital stay, they're going to need the surgery, they're going to need some rehab after that, they're going to need some continuing care for rehab and go on to the physical therapy, and they're going to have follow-up appointments for years afterwards, and all of that. How much does that cost to do all of that? Well, most of us wouldn't know off the top of our hands, because even if you've been through that, you don't write a check for it, right? You don't write a check for heart surgery. Who does? Who writes that check? Well, Medicare. A government program. A government program writes that check. Now, you might have Blue Cross, but they're actually paying, or whatever insurance, they're paying a small portion of it. The bulk of it is paid by Medicare, right? And so if you have heart disease, you're covered. You're not going to go broke because you have heart disease. What if you have Alzheimer's? What if you have Parkinson's dementia? What if you have a stroke? What if you need continuing care? Well, the cost of that care could be significantly less than what Medicare is paying for a heart surgery. It could be well over $500,000 to pay for that heart surgery that Medicare is paying for. And what are they going to pay for the continuing care that somebody needs when they have Alzheimer's? Zero, pretty much zero. So we talk about, oh, well, I don't want to have this government program. Well, we all have the government program. We're all going to have insurance. We're all going to have Medicare. And that's going to pay for the bulk of it if we get the right disease. And what if we get the wrong disease? That's where the trouble comes in. And that's where the protecting yourself and protecting your family comes in, and making sure that we have things legally set up properly. So let's just talk briefly about these other three columns here, and then I'm going to get into what we do, what the legal planning is that we need to do to protect you. And so I wanted to start off with this, just because people don't realize what it is that they're protecting, what it is that we're trying to protect to make sure that we're going to be eligible for. And that's what, so we're starting off with this conversation about care, because this is actually going to be what we might need, right? And a lot of us would like to say, oh, well, I'm not going to need it. My neighbor might need it. My neighbor might, but we don't know, right? We don't know what the future brings. And so this is whether it's for ourselves or for our spouse or our parents or, whatever the scenario is, most of us are going to be impacted by somebody needing long-term care for an extended period of time. And so how are we going to get good care? How are we going to pay for it? So these last three columns we're just going to talk briefly about, and then we're going to get into the legal planning and those types of things. And we're going to talk about how to stay out of court and all the other topics that I told you about. So the first one is this program called Medicaid PACE, Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. So this is really interesting, this Program for All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly, and the name itself is interesting, right? Isn't that a program for all-inclusive care for the elderly? So that's really, seems like that might be a good program, and it is. It's a very good program. It's regionally based, so there's one for each region, and most of the state of Michigan is now covered, not all of it. I actually was able to do one of these webinar Wednesdays with one of the folks from the Genesis PACE, the one that's for Genesee County, Lapeer, and into some the other surrounding counties just a little bit. And the idea is if you're interested in learning more about PACE, you may go back and watch that other webinar that we did specifically with the whole, better part of an hour about this program for all-inclusive care for the elderly. But where do we, under what circumstances would we be looking at that program? Well, you look down here. Yes, yes, maybe, no, 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 right? And so, or not unless. So the yes is in your home. You want to stay in your home. You want a team that's going to come up with a plan of care to allow you to stay in your home, be able to, get you the care you need, the doctors that you need, the things like that. And it's designed for you to stay in your home. Now, where your home is up to you, right? So it could be your home is your daughter's house, right? Your home could be your house. Your home could be an independent living, if we go down to that column. A home could be an adult foster care. That's a possibility that you could be living in an adult foster care, paying the adult foster care for the room and board and all of that. And the PACE is, supporting the adult foster care. Now, these other programs, as if you watch the webinar, you'll see these other assisted living, memory care, skilled care, nursing home. It's possible that you could be on PACE and it would be covered under the PACE program, but they're not going to let you into the program if you need that level of care. If you're already where there's just no way you can stay home. There's no way that you can be in independent living. If you need, care in assisted living, memory care, nursing home, if it advances to that, it might be where PACE will pay for that. But they're not going to let you into the program initially if that's the level of care you need at the beginning when we're, when we're getting reviewed for PACE. The next program is this My Choice Waiver program. So this is, again, a home care program. And so I say maybe because this is, again, a regionally based program, and the regions are a little bit different than the PACE regions, but every region is done a little bit different. And every region, it's a little bit different as to how easy it is to get onto this Medicaid waiver and how many hours they give you and things like that. And so in some regions, they have lots of assisted livings and lots of memory cares and lots of, varying different types of care that is cooperative with this Medicaid waiver program and what they call the waiver agency. Others, not so much. And others, it has, a lot, seems to be where they're much more stingy with the number of hours of care that you can get, and, things like that. And again, others, it's that there's a waiting list. And that's the problem with waiver, is if they run out of money or if they run out of slots, they call them. In other words, there's so many people they can help, and if they got to that limit, then you got to wait until there's a spot open up. And so this is, again, home care. So it's a nice program for home care wherever your home is, but depending on where you are in the state, it may be easier or harder to get the care that you need through that. And then finally, we've got nursing home Medicaid, and I'm just going to call it that. There's a little bit more technical term for this, but we're just going to call it nursing home Medicaid. And nursing home Medicaid, you see, obviously, because it's called nursing home Medicaid. It's just for the nursing home, right? So it's gonna pay for hospitalizations and other things like that too, but it's primarily for nursing home. Now, this is the only one that covers room and board. Okay, so PACE and waiver are not going to cover the cost of room and board. So if you are in adult foster care, assisted living, memory care, you have to cover the cost of room and board for PACE and waiver, right? For nursing home, your contribution would be based on your income. So where the place might cost $10,000 a month, if your income is $1,500, you're going to pay less than $1,500 for that place. So oddly enough, the one that costs the most sometimes is the one that's covered by the government. Typical government, right? The one that costs the most is what some people are forced into, because we can't. None of these other ones are going to work. And so that's just something to think about. It's interesting public policy, if you want to have public policy to debate at some time. And they call it the requirement of institutionalization. And that's not a great term, but the idea behind that is the government saying, oh, well, we'll pay for it if you stay in a nursing home, but we're not going to pay for your care if you stay in your house. Well, there is these programs, but the ones that cover more are, so ideally, we would move to a place where more of the benefits, where the state's actually paying out less money, like the PACE and waiver programs, and not requiring somebody to be in a nursing home. That, I'm getting on my stump speech for politics, but the bottom line is that would be good for everybody, right? If these programs would pay for less costly care that people like more, right? More independence, more quality of life in your home, more quality of life, more independence in assisted living and independent living. But when we get into that situation, and we really need, we don't have the money to pay for room and board, we're looking at nursing home, right? And so unfortunately, that's the way government works right now, especially in Michigan. And so hopefully we'll lobby and maybe get that changed, but just something to be aware of, okay? So next, let's move on to what we're talking about here. I do want to mention that for PACE and waiver, the one that's not nursing home, that there is an individual income limit. So this year's individual income limit is $2,349. Another area where it'd be good, hopefully we'll be able to get this law changed, and we are lobbying to get this law changed, but the idea is that if you make $2,350 a month, you get excluded from participating in either of these programs. But if you make $2,348 a month, then you're perfectly fine. And that seems kind of arbitrary and unfair. And many states have figured out that that's arbitrary and unfair and actually bad for the state, because now they have to pay more money to have you go to a nursing home. So we're trying to get that changed in Michigan. Other states have figured out a workaround for this. And ideally, we'll eventually get this part changed. All right, for Medicaid, what can you keep? So we're going to talk about, this is the default. So many of you have seen this before, and you see this big red X over this. Why is there a big red X over this page? And the answer is because this is what we're trying to avoid, right? When we say protect your family, protect yourself, it's to protect from not having to spend down to $2,000, from not having to have your house be subject to what they call a state recovery. So don't do this, right? This is a big X. Don't do this. This is what you're going to read if you ask, people in the healthcare industry. They're going to, and you say the word Medicaid, they're going to say, "Oh, you lose everything on Medicaid." Well, you don't have to. That's what we're going to get into in just a second, is how you won't lose everything if you do proper legal planning. And so the issue here is, I want to talk to you about what would happen if you don't do proper legal planning and you don't do anything to protect yourself. So the law is written with ways that you can protect yourself. A lot of people don't. A lot of people, they let the law happen to them. They let it take advantage of them, so they spend down to $2,000. Well, you don't have to let that happen. So this is what happens if you don't do good planning. You can keep the house and still be on Medicaid, but then they can come back and take the house after you die. But there's a bigger problem. Not only can they take the house after you die, but if you're in a nursing home, how are you going to pay for it? Because in the nursing home, they're going to take your income too, right? So if you're in a nursing home, you're still going to have to pay your income to the nursing home, and they leave you with $2 a day. $60 a month or $2 a day. At $2 a day, how are you going to support or keep up the house? Okay, so again, we just don't want it to get down to this. You can keep $2,000 in countable assets, one car, one prepaid funeral, one $1,500 face value life insurance policy, and household goods. They don't take your wedding ring. They let you keep your wedding ring. They let you keep a TV, you know, those types of things. But pretty much everything else you could lose without proper planning if we need to qualify for very expensive long-term care. So what can we do? Let's see, I'm trying to change the page here, hold on. There we go. Here's the biggest thing. So you may hear me talk, or you've heard me talk about what we call extraordinary powers, extraordinary powers. Why do we need extraordinary powers, and why don't you have them? Well, if you're our client, you probably do. No, not everybody decides that they want them because they don't have anybody they love and trust. But if you have people that you love and trust, and that's a term that I use a lot, you have to have somebody that you love and trust in order for this planning to work. If you have nobody that you love and trust, this planning won't work. I can't get you extraordinary powers if you don't have people that you love and trust. Well, the way the law is treated is that, and why don't you have these in your existing documents? You may have a perfectly good estate plan. You may have a perfectly good trust, a perfectly good power of attorney, a perfectly good will, and it doesn't have extraordinary powers in it. Why? Because they're extraordinary. They're extraordinary. Now, why do our clients have them? Because we double check and make sure that you have an extreme level of trust in the people that you're giving authority to. And we put some protections in there to protect from them using them at the wrong time. And if they use them at the wrong time and they're not doing it for the right purpose, they can go to jail for using these powers. In other words, if they're taking the money, if you put somebody and give them extraordinary powers and they use them to steal from you, in other words, you've given them authority to access your bank account. You've given them the authority to, you know, do the things that we need to do to qualify for Medicaid. If they then take that and they go to this casino, they can still go to jail. It's just the problem is that, you know, because they have these extraordinary powers, that nobody, you know, they might not get caught until after after the money's gone. And so that doesn't do you any good, right? So we certainly wouldn't want to give extraordinary powers to anybody that we don't trust and love completely, right? We have to have people that we trust in order for this planning to work. And so extraordinary powers is something that we build into all of our legal documents, and there's other planning that we can do too in advance. People have heard me talk about lockbox trusts and asset protection trusts and veterans trust, and there's a bunch of other things that we can do. But this is the most important one, to say that we need to have extra authority beyond that of what a normal executor of the estate or trustee or successor trustee, beyond that of what a normal power of attorney has, right? We have to give them extra authority to be able to deal with your assets, move them around, sign trusts, you know, create trusts, do the things necessary that we would need to do to protect your assets in the event that you needed Medicaid or veterans benefits. Okay, and so why isn't it in everybody else's documents? Why isn't it in your documents if you're not a client of ours or a client of another attorney that does the type of work that I do? And the answer is because it's kind of dangerous. And so most lawyers are concerned. Hey, we're giving too much authority to your spouse. You know, what if you guys get divorced? Too much authority to your spouse. Too much authority to your daughter, to your son, to your brother, to your whoever it is. That's why you have to have somebody you love and trust, right? And if you have that, then we can do this. And if we have that, when the time comes, here's the bottom line results for a married couple, where one spouse is healthy and the other one needs Medicaid, and you don't have to be that healthy. So we often do this where one spouse is not particularly healthy, but they don't need Medicaid, right? So we have one Medicaid spouse and one non-Medicaid spouse, one veteran spouse, one non-veteran spouse, as far as getting benefits from the veterans. And so typically for married couples qualify for Medicaid, we can maximize the safe harbors that are written into the law, and I can often protect up to 100% in favor of the non-Medicaid spouse, the healthy spouse. Well, I've had people come to me time and time again where they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and impoverished the spouse because husband has Alzheimer's. And they went through all of this money, and then somebody says, oh, go see Bob Mannor at the Mannor Law Group. And then we say, oh yeah, we can help you. We can make sure you don't get any more impoverished, but they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars before they came to see us because they were told they had to. Well, the reality is the law builds in these safe harbors, and as long as we activate them and use them properly, we're typically able to protect 100% of the assets in favor of the healthy spouse. Now, if you've got unlimited money, are we going to do this? Of course not. If you've got millions of dollars, are we going to do this and protect that millions of dollars? No. Write a check. If you got millions of dollars, it's fine. You can write a check. You can pay for the care, and it's probably going to give you a better quality of life if you do that. But what I do want people to understand is that when we're talking about Medicaid, remember there's the home Medicaid, there's the PACE Medicaid, and then there's nursing home Medicaid, and nearly every place that qualifies as a nursing home, any place that qualifies as a rehab, nearly all of them accept Medicaid. And I want to make that point because sometimes when I say the word Medicaid, people have this image in their head of these terrible places that smell bad, and they lock you up and they put bars on the windows, and it's this awful place and terrible food. But that's not. There are places like that. I'm not gonna deny there's places like that. We're gonna stay away from them, right? We're never gonna let our clients, or we're gonna strongly discourage our clients from going to those places. But there's some really nice ones that take Medicaid too. Some of the fanciest ones take Medicaid. And it's not because they choose to necessarily. It's because that's the way the law works. If they want to do rehab, if they want to take those patients from the hospital and do physical therapy, occupational therapy, and all of that, the law says they also have to take Medicaid for long term. So they can't do the one without the other. Now, they don't always advertise that, right? They don't always advertise that. And we try to respect their wishes in some ways to make sure that we don't fill up all of their beds with people that are going to be there for years, because they make more money on those short-term patients. And that's why all of them are now, renaming themselves as rehab instead of nursing home or convalescent center or whatever it is because they make more money typically, not typically, they make more money on those short term. So again, we want to respect that, make sure there's beds available for the short term, but at the same time, what people don't realize is some of those really nice fancy places that serve Starbucks and have good food and have lots of nice windows and smell good and all of that, guess what? They take Medicaid. So what if you're a single person? So we can't use those safe harbors to protect for because of a married couple, protect on behalf of the non-Medicaid spouse. But even for a single person, typically we can protect the house, 100%, the car, and about 50% of everything else, and sometimes even more than 50% of everything else. It depends on the circumstances. Now that sounds not so great, that you could potentially lose 50% of your money, but the answer is, first of all, there's ways that you can avoid that if you plan ahead, because we're going to talk about those asset protection trusts and lockbox trusts and things like that. But even without the lockbox trust or asset protection trust, typically we're able to, under current law, protect about half of the dollars of the money, and that's a lot better than having to spend down to $2,000, right? That's better than the last slide where we potentially lose everything. Okay, so that's what protection can do. Let's talk about this veterans benefit. So like I said earlier, there's lots of veterans benefits, but there's this particular one, often called aid and attendance, and it can help pay for independent living, assisted living, nursing home care, and in-home care, just to stay in your home, maybe even to pay a family member as long as we get the contracts and document it properly, okay? So how do we qualify for that? Well, first of all, this is only for people that served during a period of war. In a minute, I'm going to put up the dates for the periods of war, but the bottom line is you don't have to have served in war. You don't have to have served overseas. You don't have to have carried a gun. You don't have to have been in battle. It is you just served during that time period, even for a single day. We've had people that just served a few days during that wartime period, and then the war was over, or they got out right after the war started, or whatever the scenario was, and they still qualify. You have to have served at least one day during a wartime period. One of the quick examples that we have is that people served after Korea, but before Vietnam, and they don't qualify because it wasn't a wartime period between Korea and Vietnam. But then they were in the reserves, or they were in the National Guard, and they got called up by the federal government for 10 days in 1968. You may remember 10 days in 1968, what that might have been. Well, there was a bunch of riots, right? And the federal government got called in, and the federal government called up a lot of people that were in the reserves, and they called up a lot of people that were in the National Guard, and they were activated by the federal government for 10 days. Well, that was during the Vietnam War era, and therefore they served 10 days during a wartime period, even though their primary service was in between wartime periods. So that's all that is required. Now you have to have at least 90 days of active duty, 90 days of active service. So reserve time doesn't count. National Guard time doesn't count unless you were activated. Reserve time doesn't count unless you were activated. It has to be active duty for a minimum of 90 days. Have to have a discharge other than dishonorable. General discharge, medical discharge is fine. Unreimbursed medical expenses that come close to or exceed your income. Let's say that in regular English, right? You're spending more than you're bringing in. You're spending more than you're bringing in because you have home care, because you're paying for assisted living, because you're paying for independent living. You know, you're spending more than you're bringing in. That's when this benefit kicks in at its maximum amount. Then we have assets. So let's talk about assets because they changed the rules on us. In 2018, with 30 days notice, they gave us 30 days notice and they notified us on September 18th and that it was going to take effect on October 18th. So for our clients that were already existing clients, we send out a message to everybody because anybody that wanted to do planning to protect their assets for VA, they were going to get grandfathered in as long as they completed their planning by October 18th, 2018. So if you were one of our clients, you may have forgotten this because it's a couple of years ago, but if you were one of our clients, we sent out these urgent notices to everybody and said, hey, if you've thought about protecting your assets using one of these veterans trusts or one of these asset protection trusts, lockbox trusts, if you thought that you would just do this in the future, now's the time because we have a deadline if we do it prior to October 18th. Now, can we still do those trusts and qualify for veterans benefits? Yes, but now under the new rules, we have to do it 3 years before you apply for veterans benefits. Before we didn't have to do that. Now we do. So for our clients, we gave them notice. We only had 30 days notice, but we got a bunch of our clients in. We actually worked extra hours and things like that to make sure to accommodate our clients. But going forward, if you didn't do that or weren't one of our clients, then we can still do planning that if your assets are greater than a house and 2 acres, $127,000. Okay, so if that's what you're allowed to have and still qualify for veterans benefits, you can have a house and 2 acres. But if you have 5 acres, well, 3 of the acres will count towards the 127. So if you got more than that and you say, hey, I think we're going to want to get those veterans benefits, you know, at some point in the future and probably at least 3 years from now, then we can do this. We will have some folks that they need care now. So they're paying for assisted living now, but they've got $600,000 and they're going to be able to sustain in private pay for the next 3 years. And so they say, you know what? I think we're probably going to be alive in 3 years. We should probably do the planning now so that we're going to get the help paying for the care in 3 years. Okay. And that's, again, the government rule. Sometimes people say, Bob, you're being very legalistic about this. You're saying, you know, they set up this program this way and you're getting around it. Guess what? That's what all the politicians do, and that's what all the rich people do. Now they do it with taxes, right? We're doing it with benefits for paying for care for people that need it and for average folks. You know, we're not doing this for people that have the billions and millions of dollars, right? We're doing it for average folks that say, look, I'm worried that we're going to eventually run out of money and we're not going to be able to afford this nice assisted living. I'm worried that we're going to eventually run out of money and we're not going to be able to afford this home care. So we leverage it and we say, okay, we might not be able to get you this veterans benefits for 3 years, but you know, we're going to private pay for 3 years. Maybe we'll even look at Medicaid or something like that. And then at that point, we'll be able to get the help from the VA. So it's something to think about. They also have some of these weird rules. So there's no giving money away after October 18th. They will penalize you for giving money away. They're not talking about $50 at Christmas or birthday. They're talking about you gave $10,000 away to your kids, right? Now, a lot of people think you can do that. A lot of people think you're allowed to give away $10,000 to your kids every year. No, you're not. That's a tax rule, and it's a tax rule that really only helps really, really rich people. And I know people tell me this all the time. Oh, I'm giving away $10,000 to each of my kids every year. It's not helping you, and it's not helping them unless one of you is a multi-millionaire to the tune of like $12 million or more. And if you are a multi-millionaire, then sure, come and see us, give money to your kids, whatever. But the bottom line is it's not helping you to give away money. It's not helping. I mean, it helps them because they got $10,000, but it doesn't help you from a tax perspective. And it could hurt you if we need to qualify for veterans benefits or Medicaid. All right. And then these annuities, they made this rule against these annuities because there was these annuity salespeople out there selling annuities and saying that's going to get you veterans benefits. Was never actually true, but that's what people would say. And so what happened was that one of the reasons why I passed this law was to prevent those people selling bad financial products to veterans. Somebody asked here, can we talk about the safe harbors that are in there? So the safe harbors that I'm going to talk about are basically the strategies that we use to protect assets. And so one of them, this is a really, it's probably the easiest example that I can give, but we're going to see if it actually still works in the future. So in Michigan right now, there's a special type of trust. We frequently refer to them as sole benefit trusts. And so this is a safe harbor where we can put the excess assets in a sole benefit trust for the benefit of the healthy spouse. Now, there's a bunch of terms and a bunch of details and a bunch of very specific restrictions about that sole benefit trust, but that's an example of a safe harbor where we're able to do that. Now some people might say, okay, Bob, set up one of those sole benefit trusts for me now. No, we can't set it up until after you get past a certain date. So I can't set it up now to say, well, I want to set it up so that if I ever need nursing home. No, we set it up after you go into the nursing home, oddly enough. Isn't that weird? So we wait till you go to nursing home, then we set up this sole benefited trust, which is why we need the extraordinary powers, because we need somebody in your family, we need somebody you love and trust to be able to set that up after you're probably incapacitated and can't do it yourself. So that's an example of an extraordinary power. So that's one. We'll see if we're allowed to use that in the future. Again, we're able to use it now. They're attacking it. Another thing is we can convert the extra assets into an income stream for the healthy spouse. Now, it's not my favorite thing to do, but it is an effective way to do it, not from a financial planning standpoint. This is not about financial planning. This is about making sure we don't lose the money and then the healthy spouse or the non-Medicaid spouse has money to live on and hopefully even pass it on to their kids. And that is a very specific set of rules too, where we convert it from an asset to an income only for Medicaid purposes. In other words, nobody else in the world would call it income because it's like moving money from the left hand to the right hand. But the way they set up the law, they said, well, if you do it a certain way, you're allowed to do it, and that's gonna protect you for Medicaid. Now again, we can't do that until a date certain. We can't do it until you've already moved into the nursing home. Doesn't do us any good. Sometimes I've heard annuity salespeople out there saying, oh, buy this annuity and it's gonna protect you from the nursing home. Oh, that's a bunch of garbage. It doesn't, are there sometimes annuities used in part of this planning? Sometimes. It's usually my last resort if I can't find a better way to do it, but sometimes they're used, but it does zero good to purchase it in advance. It has to be done where it's set up in a very specific way after the fact, after you move into the nursing home, which seems so counterintuitive. And that's why they get away with, selling sometimes bad financial products, because it seems so counterintuitive. Oh, you got to do this before you go into the nursing home. Reality is, no, you got to actually do it after you go to the nursing home. And so buying the annuity in advance actually not only doesn't help you, but it could hurt you as it relates to veterans benefits and Medicaid. So that's my attempt at giving you a couple examples of those safe harbors. Okay, so again, we talked about this. If we want to protect benefits for veterans benefits, we would need to complete the planning 3 years in advance if you have too much in assets. That is not true for Medicaid, by the way. That is a separate issue for Medicaid, and that is something you need to be aware of, that we don't have to necessarily. It helps if we do it in advance, but we don't necessarily. If you're given $10,000 per year to take care of your dad for financial situations, paying bills, is that considered a gift? Unfortunately, it is considered a gift. So your parents are giving you $10,000 thinking they're doing a good thing. They're doing it because you're helping them out. And the answer is, you can still do it, but we got to have a notarized contract. Which is ridiculous. I know this is ridiculous. I understand this, how ridiculous this is, but this is the government for you, right? And so that's just the way it is. So if your parents are giving you money, we should probably consider writing it up as part of a contract. It's something we can do. It doesn't cost a ton of money, and it's not that difficult. But if you're giving you money for you to provide some care and help and handling their finances and things like that, great, more power to them. Let's document it, and that way then you're not going to get penalized. Okay. Keep an eye on these veterans benefits. These are the dates. If any of you want this slideshow, you just email. You're going to see in a couple minutes, Savannah's going to tell you about how to get a hold of us. And so we can either email this to you, or there's going to be a phone call that you can have with us at no cost to you to kind of interview us. And during that phone call, you can ask for this slide presentation if you're looking for it. So these are the dates that you have to have served. These are the amounts for 2020. The amounts are for a married couple, $2,266 per month, tax-free, not bad. Single veteran, $1,912 a month. A surviving spouse of a veteran, $1,230 a month, and veteran with a healthy spouse. In other words, veteran's healthy spouse needs care. So veteran is healthy, spouse has Alzheimer's, and we need Alzheimer's care. The veteran can get $1,501 per month tax-free. There's a lot of scams out there when it comes to veterans. Be very careful if somebody says that they're from the VA and from the government, I'm here to help. The VA doesn't help you in any serious way to qualify for these benefits. And it seems like they're helping you and they say they're from the VA, they're not. Now, there are some helpers out there, certainly. The county has veteran service officers. So we often will work with the county VA officer. Now, they don't work for the VA. They work for the county, they work for the state. They don't work for the VA. There's other, good organizations, but there's a whole bunch of bad ones too that are basically a scam. And anybody that's asking for money or a membership fee or some kind of garbage like that, it's a scam, and be aware of it, okay? All right, let's talk about the legal documents that are really critical here. First of all is going to be the power of attorneys, right? So we're going to need powers of attorney because of the gap between your ability to act and making sure your wishes are followed. Saying it out loud, saying, I want my oldest daughter to be the one that will help me with my finances, that's not a legally binding thing. You can't do it. We've got to have written documents. And it can't just be any written documents, or my advice isn't just any written documents, because the language, we had one in the other day, I looked at, somebody brought in their power of attorney, and I said, oh my goodness, we can't use this. What we had to do to qualify for Medicaid in that case was to cash in a life insurance policy. And that power of attorney didn't allow us to cash in a life insurance policy. So some people say, well, my power of attorney is great because it's just 2 sentences. It says, the person I'm appointing can do anything I can do. Nope, it doesn't work that way. You have to be very specific about what they can do, and the law won't treat it. Even if you use very general language, it's not enforceable that way. So our powers of attorney are a little bit different. We incorporate these extraordinary powers that I talked about earlier. You need both a financial power of attorney and you need a healthcare power of attorney or patient advocate. They can't be the same document in Michigan. Those are separate documents. You need both documents, and they're used for different purposes. A lot of people will say, oh, well, I have a quitclaim deed that I have in my drawer that adds my kids' names or gives it to my kids. No, these are bad ideas. They're going to cause more problems than they're worth. First of all, it's considered a gift, and we've got the issues with regard to gifting, both from veterans and Medicaid, but also from a property tax standpoint, from a capital gains potential standpoint. Ladybird deeds. I hear people often do ladybird deeds. Now, it's not that we won't ever do a ladybird deed, but often it's not the best answer. And I have attorneys often will say, oh, well, we don't need to do a comprehensive plan. We're just going to do a ladybird deed. Well, ladybird deed is going to solve one problem on one day if nothing ever changes. So if everybody that is alive dies in the right order, if all we care about is avoiding probate, there's never going to be a Medicaid need, there's never going to be a nursing home, everybody's going to stay healthy, and everybody dies in the right order based on their age, then ladybird deed might work. But a lot of times that's not what happens, right? Just even looking at modern history, recent history, right? Nobody could have expected the events of 2020. I know I didn't. Maybe somebody did, but I certainly didn't. And we know things don't always work out the way that we thought. And so when we're doing a ladybird deed, we're basically making assumptions that says everything's going to be the same when I die that it is now. Well, that's not typically the case, right? Maybe you got lucky, but a lot of times you don't. And so ladybird deed, it's not that we don't do them. We do ladybird deeds, but it has no backup. It has no what ifs, you know. And so the idea of doing a trust, which is what we're often going to recommend, and not just any trust, but one that actually is detailed to your circumstances, that's going to be able to answer the what ifs. Well, what if somebody dies? What if somebody what if their child dies? Do we want it to go on to their kids? Do we want it to go to the other siblings? What if one of the people is on disability? What if they get sick? How do we, you know, Lady Bird Deed can't deal with any of that. All right. Adding kids' names. Do not add your kids' names to accounts. I cannot say that any more plainly. Do not add kids' names to your accounts. That does not protect you. That makes you more exposed. When you add kids' names to accounts, you're more exposed. You are now exposed to anything bad happening to your kid has now happened to you. They get divorced, your money is exposed. They don't pay their credit card bill, your money is exposed. They lose their house to foreclosure, your money is exposed. They get sick, they go to the nursing home before you, your money is exposed. They die before you, you know, this is not the way to do it. People think they're doing it for protection. It is the opposite of protecting your assets. All right, so if you've planned, you're going to have a durable power of attorney for healthcare. If you haven't planned, we might have to go to court and get a guardianship. If you've planned, you would have a durable power of attorney for finances. If you haven't planned, you might have to go to court and get a conservatorship. Now, if you have those things, durable powers of attorney, typically we don't need to go to court. So sometimes people will be told they have to go to court and get a guardianship or conservatorship when they have perfectly good legal documents. So that's where you want to make sure you're getting good advice, because even lawyers will sometimes tell you that. And my view is, and this is a bias on my part, but my bias is if we can stay out of court, I can keep my families out of court, my clients out of court, I want to do that. All right. And so somebody says you have to get guardianship, you might want to get a second opinion. I don't have to worry about that because I've got payable on death or beneficiaries on all my accounts, or I don't have to worry about that because I got my kids' names on my accounts. That is going to subject your money to risk, what I call the 4 Ds. Divorce, this is kids divorced, kids debt, kids disability or their spouse's disability. Like, you know, so your daughter's husband goes into a nursing home, your money's on, they're on your account, your money could be exposed to your daughter's husband's nursing home costs. Death, you know, people dying in the wrong order. If you planned, you have a will or a trust. If you haven't planned, the state of Michigan has written a will for you. They call it intestate. Do I need a will? Yes. Last will and testament's going to name who's in charge and who gets your stuff. But if we use it, so we have a will as a backup, but if we need to use the will, we end up having a delay. It's going to be in probate for a series of months, maybe, you know, up to a year typically. Controls with the probate court, not with the family, and everything's a matter of public record. I need a trust. Well, a trust, sometimes it avoids probate for those assets that are covered by the trust. It handles things during your disability. It does not help us qualify for veterans benefits or Medicaid, and it does not protect assets. What about protecting the kids after you're gone? So we've got 2 different things to talk about here, making sure we minimize the taxes on your retirement accounts, and then protecting the kids from, once they inherit it, protecting them from problems that they might have. So your daughter's married to your idiot son-in-law. Your son has maybe some financial problems. How do we protect the inheritance from the idiot son-in-law, the financial problems? Or with Danny, it's because he's on disability. So Danny's on SSI, he gets disability and medical benefits. If we leave him money outright, Danny could will lose those medical benefits and the disability benefits. So the idea then is what we call these lifetime protector trusts. Susie's in charge of her share, but it's not subject to divorce. Roger's in charge of his share, but it's not subject to his creditors. Danny can't be in charge, but we could put Susie or Roger in charge or somebody else, and then Danny can get his share and he won't lose his medical benefits or disability benefits, okay? Then we have this thing we call an asset protection trust or lockbox trust. This is not the only option we have for protecting assets, but it's one of them. The thing about this is, in order to do this, we have to do it in advance. If we think we're going to need Medicaid, if we think we're going to need veterans benefits, or we're just worried about it, we want to protect assets, we need to do it years in advance, okay? So this is kind of the structure of things, the different options for planning that we would go through with you when you come in for an appointment. But basically, the big thing is that it's a comprehensive approach, right? We don't. Somebody calls us up and they say, well, I need a power of attorney. Typically, to me, that means they need more than a power of attorney. And it's not because I'm trying to be, well, they say they want a power of attorney. Some attorneys, you call them up, say, I need a power of attorney. They're like, okay, here it is. Sign here, write me a check. But the thing is, what we ask is, well, why do you need a power of attorney? Are you sure it's actually not that there's some problem, there's some dementia, there's some other issue? And what we want to do is make sure you have a plan. And it's a comprehensive plan, and that's what we do. I'm not interested in doing piecemeal planning. If somebody wants a legal document, go to the internet and get a bad legal document. We don't do that. We do planning. The documents are not. It's about making sure we have a plan in place to make sure that you're taken care of for your lifetime. That if you get sick, you've got a plan in place and the right people in charge, and that we have the ability to protect assets, qualify for these benefits, that we stay out of court, that we don't end up having a guardian appointed for us or some stranger appointed to be over our money, and that after death, that we can make sure that's a smooth transition and that we protect the kids. If you have something to leave the kids, wouldn't it be great if they don't lose it because they're going through a divorce, or they don't lose it because they had some previous creditor problems, or they don't lose it because of other financial issues that they have, or because of a sickness or an illness, or maybe we want to minimize the taxes on it. Okay, this is what we call a comprehensive plan. I was talking to another attorney today, and they were saying the attorney that I was talking to does represent lots of rich people. Well, I represent average folks, right? I represent normal people. Well, he represents rich people, and so when we were discussing it, his point was it's actually more important for the average folks to have a real plan than it is for the rich folks, because the rich folks, yeah, of course they need extensive planning, but it's more important for average folks, because the rich folks can afford it. They can afford to write, to pay $100,000 a year for a nursing home. They can afford that. Most folks can't, right? And so it's more important for that. It's more important that we're not going to lose our medical or disability benefits if you have a child or grandchild who has special needs. And he was right. He's very accurate. There's more need for these types of comprehensive services and making sure that we have a real serious plan to deal with all of these issues for folks that are normal and average, and as far as at least their wealth, than the really rich folks. Okay. So what are your questions? We went a little over the hour here today, but Savannah, I did answer a couple questions there. I didn't know if there was any additional questions.
Oh, we just have the 2 questions about the safe harbors, and then the question about the $10,000 a year.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, and that's it.
Well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Savannah, and she's going to give you some instructions about what to do next. And you have an opportunity to interview us with a free interview. We always like to have people have a chance to talk to us and figure out if we'd be a good connection for them, if we'd be good lawyers for them. So feel free to follow that process. And Savannah, if you want to take over and give them some instructions.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Bob. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Now, as Bob mentioned, we do have an easy way for you to get started working with our team, and even just decide if you would like to work with our team. So you should have already gotten an email today, and inside of that email, it will have instructions for you to schedule that risk-free, no-cost, complimentary interview call. You'll click the button, it'll take you to a calendar. You'll choose a day and a time that's convenient for you, and a member of our team will reach out to you and give you a call. The call will last about 15 minutes. We'll ask any questions that you have about our firm, about our process. You can get to know us, and then we can ask questions about your concerns and your situation, and we'll just decide, is our firm the best to help you? And if not, who could be better to help you? We can even direct you to someone else. So I do encourage you, if there's anything that you're wondering, maybe I should talk about the attorney with this, please reach out, schedule that no risk call, and then we can go from there. So thank you again for joining. Please check your email for that, your email inbox for that email. And then tomorrow, the replay email will come as well. So be sure to share that with family and friends or anyone who you think could benefit from learning that information. Have a great day.